Jersey has Dan Patrick and Colin Cowherd back to back. DP at 9, Colin at noon.
You hit the nail on the head.
Fox Sports 920, The Jersey. Want to talk to Zach? It's got to be about sports, okay? It cannot be about his hair again. 609-919-9200. More of the Zach Gelb Show now on Fox Sports 920, The Jersey.
Zach Gelb Show, Fox Sports 920, The Jersey. Time in the Princeton Orthopedic Associates studios is 5:19. We got a Game 7. LeBron said it. Nothing better than those two words in sports. It's a Game 7 coming up on Sunday between the Cavs and the Warriors. And now joining us on the hotline, does a tremendous job doing the talk show on the mornings in Cleveland, 92.3 The Fan, and that's Ken Carman. Ken, Zach Gelb here. Thanks for a few minutes, and how are you, my friend?
Hey, Zach, doing well, brother. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you so much for coming on, and I'm a big fan of your afternoon guy. I'm good friends with him. That's Adam the Bull. How is the Bull doing?
Oh, he's miserable as always. No, he's on a big no gluten kick. So I feel bad for him because, like, they bust his stones pretty good, and he's so they. I think they're like kind of tempting him with like gluten. So that's pretty horrible. And then, of course, I don't know, for whatever reason, he goes because he like refuses to drink, and it's not a big deal if he drinks or not, but it's always some big, like, I always see him tweet back at people about why he won't have a beer if the Cavs win. So things are just going wonderfully for Bull.
Well, I have to imagine a guy that's going to have a few beers coming up on Sunday if the Cavs win is going to be J.R. Smith. How about what his daughter said, that she's just happy that Daddy didn't get kicked off the team again?
She's a woman who knows her dad, I'll tell you that. For everything that we know about J.R., that was about as poignant as you're going to find anybody say about anybody.
And that's right. Kids always tell the truth. So that was some Father's Day present for J.R. Smith, and hopefully he gets a better present coming up on Sunday with a championship trophy as the Cavs try to deliver that to Cleveland. So you did morning drive this morning. Give me a little taste of the city of Cleveland, and what was the feel of the fans this morning? They must have been all jacked up.
Oh, yeah, they're really excited. I mean, you get that big Game 5 win, and then, of course, in Game 6, I think a lot of people are like, well, you hope. You don't want them to celebrate it in Cleveland if they get it, so you're just kind of hoping, and they came out pretty good. And then over the second half, LeBron pretty much took over in his own way. He had a lot of help from Tristan Thompson, of course, on the boards, and Kyrie Irving had another nice game again. So there's a lot of stuff to get excited about that. But to get that win and to make it 3-3, I think a lot of people are really excited for Game 7 now because it's just on one game. It's just one game to figure out if LeBron can do it a third time, if the rest of this team can help him against a really good Golden State team. They'll be back at home. I think they'll play well. It's going to be really tough, but you got guys over there that are dropping, and especially in the interior, and if they don't find a way to stop them, especially with maybe no Andre Iguodala or a hampered Andre Iguodala, LeBron's a guy who will still just put the ball down and go right to the bucket. So if they turn that thing into a layup line, Klay Thompson can get some threes, but eventually they think that they can turn that faucet off. And if they can, you better find a way to stop LeBron, because if you can't do that, the Cavaliers are going to win that on the road.
I hope the drought ends for Cleveland, because I know a bunch of people in Cleveland, and they're just so deserving of a championship, and it would be fun to see them get that championship, especially everything that happened with LeBron, him leaving and now him coming back. So it would be fun to see him deliver, especially when everyone, including myself, counting them out when they were down 2-0 in this series. But how many pessimistic callers did you receive today that were all nervous, saying, hey, this is Cleveland, we know it's eventually going to go south?
Oh, you always have your few people there, because just like anything else, we've been disappointed so many times that you want to protect yourself from being disappointed. So there's going to be people who say that no matter what, even if it does get 3-3. If they were up 3-0, there'd be people who would be saying that. You remember back in 2007, they were up 3-1 in the series in the ALCS against Boston and couldn't close.
That's right.
And Boston ended up winning that series and going on and beating the Rockies, which a lot of people here think if they would have had that chance to play the Rockies, they would have beaten the Rockies and would have won the World Series that season. So there's a lot of people who remember that. They remember back in 2009 when they were supposed to be really good. They were a 66-win team, and they ended up getting beaten in the Eastern Conference Finals against the Orlando Magic. So there's a lot of people who are going to be very pessimistic. 52 years is a long time. I mean, that really spans almost four different generations when you focus on the adults there. So it's a very tough thing to bridge, and there's people who they always feel that they're going to be pessimistic, and with very, very good reason, and basically they think a guy like me, where I do try to see it and see it for what it is, but I also try to see it where how could it break and who could break it. Well, there's people out there who think I'm a complete idiot because I want to be a little bit more positive and give the Cavaliers a shot in this.
The other day I opened up my show saying that people don't really appreciate nationally the greatness that we're seeing of LeBron James. A lot of people, they're always attacking him on Twitter, and some stuff LeBron does bring that on himself. I will acknowledge that, but after these last two games, I don't care what kind of nitwit you are and how much anyone hates LeBron James. You just got to appreciate what we're seeing. In his last two, you know the numbers, 82 points, 18 assists, and 24 rebounds. Just what has it been like, especially getting that feel of the city, just to watch him the last two games with his back against the wall, and this is the most pressured athlete of all time?
I think that we've seen a real true greatness from him, that we're living in a moment that if he's able to complete this on Sunday and they win this on Sunday, it'll blow the lid off the city and off of Cleveland fans everywhere. But then when you talk about this, if they do it, I think 20, 30, 40 years from now, to look back on this series and to see him go 41, and then question mark, and he'll have to put up another good performance. I think you'll look back on this as one of the finest performances in NBA history when you put him up against a 73-win team. Now, there was a debate today. I got into a pretty good rager with my co-host just about I find Golden State to be a team that has a significantly better talent than a lot of teams in the league. They're just well built. You got three guys on that team that have had MVP votes, but I find them to be fraudulent in the sense of I don't know how strong their backbone is. When you talk that much up 3-1 and you're still not able to put a team away, that's going to be a pretty big matzo ball hanging out there for all time. And I think for a lot of folks, maybe the worms turned a little bit, because I think some people nationally, you bring that aspect into it, Zach, there were a lot of people, I think, they've gotten tired of talking about LeBron, because it's not just a 13-year career. I'd put it at almost, 5 years before that in high school, junior high, we were hearing about him. The whole Hummer incident from way back when. I mean, we've been talking about LeBron James almost 20 years now. And I think people have gotten tired of it, where Steph Curry is a marvelous basketball player. He has great court vision, and he's one of the most phenomenal shooters out there, and he's changed the way that we look at the game in the NBA. And I think he's the next most exciting, biggest thing that is in the NBA, and a lot of people just want to talk about him because they've gotten tired of talking about LeBron. When the MVP candidacy gets brought up, you look back at 13 years of LeBron, where this is still the first foray with Steph Curry. And Steph Curry will go through that someday in his own right, but I think a lot of people, they really want to pass the torch on to somebody else, and they really want LeBron maybe not to go away, but to not be the dominant force anymore, and like to change the way that we look at the league. But he's proven over the last couple of games when he's on, then when he's angry, there is nothing, and I mean nothing better in sports than watching angry LeBron take over a basketball game.
Ken Carman joins us right now. Zach Gelb Show, Fox Sports 920, the Jersey time, and the Princeton Orthopedic Associates Studios is 527. Last year, I thought they should have given the MVP to LeBron, even in a losing effort. I think you can make that same case this year, and I'm not usually one to say, hey, a losing player should get the MVP, but he's been that good, Ken.
Yeah, I would think that, but, it just, Russell's the guy who's the MVP trophy. Justin Termine joined us from NBA radio earlier last week. We were talking about it a little bit, and there was a good possibility even then that we go, well, Draymond Green's the guy, but could LeBron do it? Yeah, LeBron could do it, but Bill Russell's the guy who the trophy's named after, and Bill Russell's known for winning and known for greatness. So it's very, very tough in the NBA to make that argument. We've seen it in football before. We've seen it in other realms, but it's very, very hard to do it in basketball. And I think it would be a complete shame if they lose on Sunday, which absolutely could happen. I mean, you have a home team that has an advantage. They come in as a favorite, and they should be the favorite team. But if they lose on Sunday and LeBron puts up another performance like that, it'll be a shame, because he's the guy who brought this back from 3-1 to make this a series again, to put Cleveland in a position that not a lot of fans have seen in 19 years since the 97 Indians, and a lot of people, given the chance, haven't seen in their entire lives. I've never seen a Cleveland team win a championship. So there's a lot riding on this. If he wins it, again, it goes down as one of the best stories in pro sports history. If he loses it, there's a whole lot of what-ifs coming up on Sunday night.
Kevin Love has been awful in this series. What's your explanation for the way that he's played? Because I really just don't understand it, because I think he is a good basketball player.
He is, and that's why there's no explanation. There's really no excuse for it. I want to find ways to put him in and get him confident. I thought coming back home he'd be more confident. He settled into, and people have taken this in the wrong way. I call Kevin Love a role player, and they think I'm saying that he sucks. Well, he doesn't suck. He's a good player. He's a disappointment, but he's a good player. And a role player for a team like the Cavs that have so much stake, a role player is a big deal. Andre Iguodala is a big deal to the Golden State Warriors. He's a role player. Draymond Green, when he got his contract, now he's a better all-around player. He's an MVP vote-style guy. But he's a role guy when he got that contract. When you have a team, when you have 2, 3, 4 teams, put it in the top echelon. I put the Cavs in there, and then the 3 out west with Golden State, Oklahoma City, and with San Antonio. Well, you're going to have highly paid role players that need to fulfill those roles. That can be an important thing. So people take that in the wrong way. I tell them to stop getting so sensitive over that, to look at what it is. Kevin needs to fulfill his role, and he hasn't fulfilled his role. Part of that's been on the Cavs. Part of that was on David Blatt and Ty Lue. But some of this, and a lot of this is still on Kevin. Is that I need him to be a smarter basketball player. I need him to be more of a Chris Bosh. Is that Chris Bosh's role changed? His numbers technically went down. His touches per game went down. But I have a much larger appreciation for what he was able to do to make the Miami Heat work than I ever had for Chris Bosh when he was with the Toronto Raptors, and he was the guy. And Kevin, whether he stays in Cleveland after this year or whether he goes, because if he's going to win anything, he's going to have to play the same way on another team because he can't be the guy. If that's going to be the case, that he's going to need to fulfill that role, or his career will be known as a disappointment. The man has not been able to get rebounds. His footwork has been terrible over the last couple of basketball games. His footwork, he can't move for whatever reason, and I don't think it's because of an injury. I know that he's had concussions, but if they're going to put him back out there, well, then that's really on the league, and they open themselves up to something pretty litigious. For Kevin, there's always been this gear that he just can't find, and I think he's been frustrated. I think it's made him very, very meek throughout this time, very shy, very hesitant to do some of the things that he's been able to do before. And some of this I can understand. I really like Kevin Love as a basketball player. I loved him at UCLA. I thought he was a tough ass at UCLA. But when he's come to Cleveland, whether it be with the weight drop, because he's lost a good 30 pounds, whether it be with the Banana Republic ads or whatever, he struggled to fill the bill. And I feel really disappointed because I think he could be a force in this league if he really could find a way to get himself back to what he was before when he was in Minnesota and really was when he was at UCLA as a basketball player in college.
And it's not a knock on him, because when he was at Minnesota, really, there was no one else around him. That team was just him. And he's a good player, not a great player. And sometimes in our society, we just overuse that word great, and people were throwing that word great around, when in reality, he's just a good player.
I'll tell you this, Zach. And this is one of the things I've been fighting with people over the last couple of years, even here in Cleveland, is that when they made that trade with Andrew Wiggins, I supported that trade at the time. And
it was the right move.
Because they needed to, because Andrew Wiggins is going to be a great basketball. I think he's going to be a really great basketball player someday. They need to fix those shoes that they came out with. They're terrible. But he's going to be a great basketball player someday. But that's going to be someday down the line. That's not right now where they need him to be. And I don't think that Andrew Wiggins would be able to develop the way that people think he would develop, because his role would be completely different playing with LeBron and Kyrie Irving as the 1 and 2, where he'd be the third option. They needed to make that move. But what people thought, for whatever reason, and this shows you how people had to change and start watching basketball again when the Cavaliers were good, is that they saw 20 and 10 every single night, or 20 and 15 in some aspects, and thought that he was just going to bring that. And we said it from the very moment we even considered making that trade. The night they drafted Andrew Wiggins and Adrian Wojnarowski came out with the article that it could possibly happen, that LeBron could come here, and that they would trade for Kevin Love. And we've been telling that ever since, that those numbers aren't coming with him. His touches are going to change. His numbers are going to drop. He's going to have to play a different role. And for whatever reason, people are still trying to compare him to what he was in Minnesota, and it's just not a fair comparison for the guy. And I do think that Zach, I think that has gotten to him as well, that some people still hold him to that maximum of just stats. And it's not stats. He's got to be a guy who does some things that you're just not going to find in the box score.
A few more minutes with Ken Carman, who joins us right now. Does a great job. 92.3 The Fan in Cleveland, hosting their morning show. Is up bright and early, and I did an internship 2 years ago at that 6 a.m. shift for our guy Angelo Cataldi here in Philly. And, oh, man, that is a tough one. But I'll tell you this, and I don't know if they cater in some fine food into your studio, but when I interned over at WIP, man, they had Del Frisco's. You got some filet mignon, some lobster mac and cheese. That was a pretty nice internship, and we ate it all at like 8 in the morning too.
I get like we don't get any of that. We get like bagels every now and then, and they're like they come in the sale. we have Patchki here because we have a very ethnic Eastern Bloc. It's a very ethnic city, to be honest with you, but we have a very large ethnic population from the Eastern Bloc of Europe. So we have Patchkis here and stuff like that, but that's about it. Like we don't get any of that. Now, we're not the name that Angelo Cataldi is. I'll give you that one. Certainly nowhere near. So maybe if I can do it for 30 years here in Cleveland, and then some kid decides to be my intern someday, maybe he'll be able to get some filet mignon and lobster at 8 a.m.
Yeah, it sounds good to me. A few more questions before we let you run. Let's get to the refereeing in this series. It was an awful call on Kevin Love the other night, and then they had two really bad calls to me, the one on Kyrie and then the one at the end of the game that got him ejected. But I don't think the refs made a difference. The refs haven't been good in this series. What's your take on the refs?
It was 25 apiece on the refs on both Cleveland and Golden State yesterday, and a lot of people, if your team loses, you want to make a big deal about the refs. If your team wins, you shut up about it. We're watching a finals here where they have now 40-plus cameras in every single game. So if I really want to take away a couple of behind-the-scenes cameras or establishing shots from the tunnels, I got 30 different views, 30 of a bad call or a call in general. So I'm going to have 30 different views, which means one by one, 30 different opinions by millions of different opinions, split in half between fan bases, split in half again between those who want LeBron to win and those who want Steph Curry to win. And you're going to have a lot of people having a lot of different opinions about refs. I've never seen a sport like basketball where every single call, from high school CYO games to the NBA, every single call is going to be contested one way or the other. It just depends on what side you're on. But back in the day when you had a handful of TVs, back in the 80s, or even when Jordan was around, you had a handful of cameras. There'd be some bad calls here and there. You didn't notice as much. And plus, we weren't as connected as we were before. So there were people who complained, but there was nobody listening. Now, because there's social media, every call's garbage. Everybody gets mad at the refs. It's just, I hate to say this because the Cleveland Cavaliers are on the road on Sunday, and there's probably going to be some ones that go against them, and I'm going to be flabbergasted, but it's just something you got to deal with. I'm sure that people in the 70s, if you were to ask them, before we had Twitter and Facebook and the Internet like we do now, you'd go to some local bar out there, and they'd say, yeah, these refs are terrible, these guys suck. And you did it in the 80s and 90s, and then when the Internet explodes, now we all say it to each other. So I take it as something you have to deal with. It was funny, though. We did have Tim Donaghy on yesterday morning, and he started laying that conspiracy stuff down. Now, Tim's a guy who –
what a shocker.
I think, yeah, he's an interesting guy, and he needs a paycheck, obviously, so he's going to float a few conspiracy theories out there. But it's one of the sports where you've had a guy who has said he has massaged games in one way, and once you have one guy, they're going to think they're all crooked.
We're spending a few more minutes with Ken Carman, who does the morning drive for Cleveland. Zach Gelb Show, Fox Sports 920 The Jersey. What's your callers have to say about Aisha Curry today?
At first, there was a lot of jokes, and I don't know. I don't want to sit there and talk about a guy's wife, to be honest with you. And the more that time passes, I thought what she said. I thought what she said was. Don't get me wrong. What she said was asinine. What she said about the city and what she
it was
said
ridiculous.
Yeah, what she said about the security guard, that was asinine. But, people are emotional, and she watches the game like a fan, and it is her husband out there, and I'm sure she clearly loves her husband. So she wants him to win. You can tell she does want him to win. That's a genuine feeling. Sometimes I get a little bit tired and a little bit annoyed that they show the family after every single shot attempt, but because they all sit together, obviously. But you can tell she really loves him, and a woman's going to stand by her man, vice versa, as you hope. So she popped off. She said some regrettable things, obviously, because she deleted those tweets. But it's a different fan base, so obviously you're going to make some jokes. I wouldn't condone it. Again, I thought it was asinine, but a certain way, I guess I could see where she's coming from. Because yeah, she wants her husband to win another championship. She wants what's best for her team and what's best for her husband. She knows that he's going through a ton to try to win that thing. She wants him to be the very best, so obviously she's going to be very upset about that outcome.
Before we let you run, you got Game 7. We haven't really had a good game in this series. It's been, to me, there's been a lot of storylines, but the physical play hasn't been that great from both teams in this series. It's been very up and down. Who wins Game 7 and why?
Oh, I'm going to take LeBron and the Cavs. One, because, there is part of me that I really do want them to win. I'm not going to lie to anybody there. You don't want to call yourself a homer, but what am I supposed to say? I've never seen it, and I've wanted to see it. Cavaliers have always been kind of the bastard child in Cleveland. Since I was growing up, it's always been kind of Browns, Indians, Cavs, and I think lately it's been more Browns, Cavs, Indians, but the Browns will, because it's an NFL town, the Browns will always be number one, but everybody wants to see one of the three teams win, and I've always had the softest spot for the Cavs. So I'll tell you right now, as a fan, I want the Cavs to win. I don't know how do I put this? I don't know how I could go against LeBron, though, in a Game 7, in a closeout game, where he very well can take over. Things will have to go against him very greatly, and Golden State will have to play an exceptional basketball game because I've never seen Golden State like this. You had Steph Curry cussing out refs. Klay Thompson left early for crying out loud. Draymond Green, him and his posse, I guess they had some scuffles with people even underneath the bow because he was so frustrated. He got into a fight with his own buddies last night over at the Q. So I've never seen a team like Golden State like this, that they've in a lot of ways come emotionally unraveled, and they'll put themselves back together for Game 7. But I've seen LeBron. I've seen LeBron close out many times, and it's hard for me to go against him.
Well, Ken, we appreciate the time. Great stuff as always. Thank you so much.
Thank you.